This war did not begin with a bullet, no explosion, no scream. This war began with a silent decision, a signature, and humanity's inner hatred, fear, and lust for power. By the time people first sensed danger, borders had already changed, weapons had been prepared, and hatred had been given the name of nationalism. This was a war where the battlefield was not just land. The sky was filled with flames, and the seas were no longer safe. This was a war where not only soldiers, but children, women, and entire cities became targets. When the world realized the true reality, millions of lives had already been wagered, and humanity had become helpless before the weapons it had created. This is the story of the bloodiest war in human history, World War II, a war that changed the map of the world, altered the balance of power, and left behind the question, is humanity truly progressing, or is it merely learning better ways to destroy? And this story has only just begun. 6 years, 6 continents, and a fire that engulfed the entire world. This fire was not just burning cities, it was burning every limit within humanity. This was not merely a war of armies, it was a war of power hunger, a war of decisions born from fear, and a war of sacrificing humanity in the name of ideologies. This was an era when a single speech could drive nations mad. One command could change millions of lives, and a silent signature could write the fate of future generations. Tanks were on the streets, aircraft were tearing through the sky, and hatred was traveling on radio waves. But the real war was not being fought only on the front lines. This war was being fought in the human mind, in fear, and in the belief that we are right, everyone else is the enemy. 6 years that saw cities turn to rubble, nations break apart, and humanity witness for the first time how science and technology could become weapons of annihilation. This war did end, but its wounds remain fresh on the body of history even today. Because this war was not just of that time, it was a warning for the time to come. After World War I, the world promised peace. Nations declared that such devastation would never happen again. But these promises were written on paper, and ground reality was far more bitter. The harsh punishments given to Germany did not merely punish one country, they planted seeds of anger, humiliation, and revenge within an entire nation. Economic crisis came, factories closed, unemployment pushed young people into the darkness of despair. People were desperate for bread, asking questions, were we truly guilty, or were we made guilty? In this vacuum, one man emerged, Adolf Hitler. He did not come with guns, he came with words. He touched the nation's wounds, transformed their pain into power, and gave anger the name of hope. He identified enemies, provided simple answers, and convinced people that their humiliation could be avenged. And when a broken nation searches for a messiah, history often brings forward the wrong man. From here, a new fire began to ignite, a fire that would not remain confined to Europe alone. This war was not fought only on battlefields. This war was fought in the air, where tiny dots on radar screens became messengers of death, and fighter jets hunted each other while tearing through clouds. This war was fought in the depths of oceans, where submarines silently cut the arteries of trade, and a single torpedo could sink hundreds of lives in a moment. And this war was fought above cities, in darkness, without warning, where sirens screamed, and the sky became a roof raining fire. Civilians were not safe either. This was the first war where entire cities became military strategy. London, where nights were spent in shelters and children learned to sleep to the sound of bombs. Dresden, where fire burned both history and humanity. Tokyo, where wooden houses turned to ash in hours and the morning sun rose over a burned silence. This was not just the destruction of buildings, it was the turning to ash of memories, dreams, and futures. And the world watched silently, witnessing what price modern warfare extracts from humanity. Much remained that was never told to the public. Wars that were not in newspaper headlines, fronts that remained hidden from cameras, secret code-breaking missions where a few people sitting in silent rooms were changing the fate of millions of soldiers. A broken encryption sometimes saved entire fleets from sinking. Fake armies and deceptive war strategies, rubber tanks, dummy camps, and messages that pushed the enemy in the wrong direction. This was a war where victory was achieved by hiding truth. Weaponizing science, radar, rockets, and research whose purpose was not discovery, but destruction. Experiments conducted in laboratories directly became battlefield decisions. And some wars were not fought on maps at all. They were fought in radio signals, where every wave concealed a secret. They were fought in minds, where fear, rumors, and propaganda were the real weapons. This was a war where nations could be forced to their knees without firing a bullet. And perhaps this was the most dangerous of all. Because when the enemy is invisible, trust itself becomes a battlefront. And then came that day when humanity brought the sun down to earth with its own created intellect. Hiroshima, then Nagasaki. There was no battlefront, no warning, just a flash, so bright that even shadows were burned onto walls. In seconds, cities were erased, clocks stopped, and time changed forever. Millions of lives ended in a moment, some by burning, some silently, and some waiting for coming agony. Those who survived did not survive completely. Radiation left its poison for generations. The war was won, ceasefire was declared, flags were waved, but humanity lost there. That day, the world saw for the first time that knowledge devoid of morality becomes not salvation, but apocalypse. And in that moment, humanity also learned that the next war might be the last war. This was not just the end of World War II, it was the beginning of a new, terrifying era. Approximately 70 million people died. This is not just a number. These are broken families, extinct generations, and voices that will never return. The war ended, but its shadows never did. Shadows that still hide in borderlines, breathe in the balance of power, and stand silently behind every major decision. The United Nations came into existence with the hope that the world would not be thrown into this fire again. But along with peace came fear. The Cold War, where bullets were fewer and nerves were tested more. Nuclear weapons, weapons that hold the world hostage even when not used. All of these are products of that war. World War II is not just a chapter in history. It is a warning, a mirror in which humanity can see its true nature. And the question is not what we learned. The real question is, did we truly remember? Because if history is only read and not understood, it reserves the right to repeat itself. World War II teaches us that the most dangerous weapon is not a gun. It is human arrogance. That arrogance that considers itself right and others inferior, that arrogance that prioritizes power over reason and places victory above humanity. This very arrogance blinds nations, makes leaders ruthless, and turns ordinary people into silent spectators. When arrogance combines with fear, war becomes inevitable. World War II warns us that the real danger is not in weapons. The real danger lies within humanity. And if we do not control this arrogance, history will not forgive us. It will test us again, because wars first begin in hearts and are later fought on earth. If you wish to know these secrets of history in greater depth, then remember this story, because history is not just the past.
Because history is not just the past, it is a mirror that shows us our power, our fears, and our arrogance. The next story, it will be even more shocking, a story that will change how you think and remind you that every moment, every decision can alter the course of history. So be prepared, because the curtains of the past are about to open and the truth will astonish you.